Yeah.
Okay, we have an exciting episode for you today. We had a sound room, or an video editing room, that was dismal. It's made of cinder block. It had, it still does have actually, old linoleum on the floor, and the echo in this room was insane. So what we did was we needed a way to knock down the sound, and we came up with making sound dampening panels and printing using dye sublimation onto cloth the covers of the sound dampening panels. So behind me is one of those, and I hope you enjoy.
Here's a quick look at the location. You can see cinder block, linoleum, sheetrock, painted gloss white. Really bad for sound reflection. Rich and Travis volunteered to cut the plywood, which is 3/4 inch spruce, good one side, and I'd call that barely good one side. I paid $95 for that board. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, they cut it with the skill saw and did a great job. And I think they took turns doing it, and I think they had a lot of fun. I also purchased a sheet of 5/8 plywood, again good one side spruce, and we used that to cut 1 by 1 square foot pieces of plywood, which we then used I guess the square, and turned it to a 45, I believe, to make triangles for the triangle supports for the corners of the frames. Once all the wood was cut into strips, Travis took the sander and 80 grit sandpaper and just knocked the edges off of it so that it wouldn't damage the fabric or be sharp or dangerous when we were handling the wood. Here you can see I'm pre-drilling the 3/4 inch plywood for the corners, and I'm just using, I think they were 2-inch Robertson screws. Nothing exotic, and to hold the wood together while I'm doing it, I had bought a cheap jig, plastic jig, to hold the corners square. Once drilled, we screwed them in, and the nice thing about the jig is they do keep the corners nice and square. Here we're adding the triangles that we had cut out of 5/8 plywood to the frames. So drill them, screw them to the 3/4 inch plywood, and what that basically does is strengthens the corners. We are adding insulation to this to these boxes, and the insulation is quite heavy. So this definitely gave them the strength we needed to hold them up and keep them nice and square.
Playing with fire, everyone burns in the end.
I was really impressed with this shot because it shows the size of the panels. They're massive. We ripped the 4-foot, 8-foot sheet of 3/4 inch plywood into long strips, and we were able to basically make the frames to any sizes we want, you know, up to 8 feet by 8 feet, which I really wasn't going to do because we're limited by the size of our fabric, which is 64 inches. So these panels there were done to a maximum size of 4 feet by 8 feet. Here you can see Travis is sanding the edges down again to keep them nice and smooth, not to scratch the fabric or cut our hands when we're putting them on the wall. The Mamaki we use is a J33-160, and it's a great unit for doing dye sublimation. I don't use it for anything else because it's got inks that are loaded for it, and we did purchase the bulk ink kit, so it can run for an unlimited amount of time. You can see how much ink it's laying onto the transfer paper, which is a substantial amount. It really makes for cool dye sub. Here you can see the picture. It just looks like a black sheet that we're printing. That's actually a green screen. I really wanted one, and this is how I was going to. Here you can see I'm putting the tissue paper onto the Royal Sovereign to get it ready to receive the transfer paper and the fabric that we're going to be transferring to today. Once I have the tissue paper mounted on the machine, and I have to roll it through the unit and back to the back of the unit, and I have to wrap that paper around one of those rolls. It's quite complex. It's incredibly hot. The machine is set to 400 degrees Fahrenheit, so it's insanely hot, and it burns I burn myself on it regularly. Once I've got the tissue wrapped around the roll and taped up, now I can mount my graphic, which is on the bottom roll, and you can see my fabric is on the middle roll. Here I'm actually doing a flag, which is in front of my sound panels, and I'm getting it basically into the machine, and I'm getting it fed, and then I'm putting the flag material, which is I believe it's a nylon, and it's just, well, you'll see later. These calendar machines create a horrendous amount of smoke, so you absolutely have to use them in a vented area. We have a huge hood above this machine for sucking the air out of the environment, otherwise you'd kill your staff. We're here, I'm mounting the tissue paper to a roll, and then I'm mounting the fabric to the middle roll. So now I have 3 rolls on the front, 3 rolls on the back, and we're able to run, we're probably going to be running 40 feet here, so it's worth the time to set it up and get it mounted properly. So there we're mounted, and it's basically rolling. Really, really slowly. I'm probably running 2 or 3 feet a minute, so nothing fast. I could be running triple that, but I love the transfer. When you run the machine slower, it pushes the ink right through the material and puts out an incredible product. We're really lucky to have Randy on the staff. She's an amazing graphic designer, and in one of her past lives she actually worked in a framing shop for a period of time and knows how to wrap the corners and stitch the product properly. So she was able to show Richard and Travis how to do it. We purchased an old stapler and went to town on it. It was a lot of fun. I think they were really surprised at what a great job they did. I've always wanted a green screen to talk in front of, and this was my opportunity to get one. So we actually just printed a solid green background on the machine, on the Mamaki, and then transferred it using the dye sub. And here you can see they're stretching it. It's 4 feet by 8 feet, so it's sound dampening, and it's a green screen. once the material was stretched around the frames, it was time to add the insulation. I again went to Home Depot and I bought two packages of rock wool, and it's a sound dampening product. Not specifically for sound, but it's, I think, sound and insulation they called it, or something to that effect. And it just tucked in nice and neat between the frames, and it's the right depth. So it worked out really, really well. There's two ways to deal with the back of the frame. One of the ways would be to put more fabric on the back, but I didn't know if that would hold the insulation in place as well as I would have liked, so I wanted something slightly rigid. So what we ended up using was just some old pieces of Coroplast that I had hanging around the shop. I cut them into strips, and we stapled them to the back of the frame. Now remember, there's the triangles on the back of the frame as well, and that was part of that design was to hold the frame away from the wall so that the sound waves would have to actually travel through the insulation, or through the fabric, through the insulation, hit the wall and bounce back and come through, and by holding it away from the wall slightly, we're able to get the most effective and efficient way of sound dampening. Mounting the frames was really, really easy. We just used a 1/4-inch cement drill bit, and we just punched in between the cinder block. There is mortar, and it comes out really easily. And I had some old lag bolts hanging around the shop that worked perfectly to hold the frames up, and the size was right, and literally they could just press them in with their hands, so it worked out really fantastic. The images that we chose for the sound panel project were camera-related images, and it just comes down to, you know, if you're in an editing room, that's kind of what you want to see, or you expect to see. So that's what we went with outside of the green screen. I will say that I was totally blown away with the quality of the images, and I was very careful to choose dark colored images because I was concerned about seeing the insulation through the fabric. But it turned out that that was absolutely not an issue whatsoever. The fabric with the printing on it, you can see the white in the camera there, and you can see the white where the thumb is. You can't see any show through at all, and the quality is just absolutely amazing. Those images are 4 feet by 8 feet, so it turned out really, really, really well. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave us a like and subscribe. Thank you very much.